Right, yeah, welcome back. We are looking at Module 6 now, parametric test, explanation. Just look at the fundamental statistics. Right, so the part B of it will be for Module 7. Okay, so we just want to quickly glance through what a parametric test is all about. Then we look at the statistical modeling. So just a closer look at the statistical test branch from Module 1, original workflow we had before. So if you recall from the one complete workflow diagram after EDU, the path split into statistical test and the machine learning. So this module is that first approach, that first branch rather zoomed in. So the machine learning branch is part 3 of this course, so which is much later. So this module combined together with module 7. So life entirely inside statistical modeling. Okay, this deciding which test to trust and why. So look at the population and samples, right? Look at sample size and the population. So we almost never study an entire population, entire group directly. Quantitative research depends on this distinction. So among a population, we take a sample, always take a sample, and the entire group you want to draw a conclusion about is called the population, e.g., all pregnant women in the New York. Of course, you cannot get all the pregnant women in New York, okay? So you need to find population, sample from them. So a specific number, smaller subset used for analysis. That will not be used as to infer on other women in New York. So let's say 30% sample of those women want to use. So we analyze the sample, then infer back to the population. That is the entire point of all inferential statistics. Okay, so a study of pregnant women's weight gain in New York, for example, walked through as a loop. For example, we have defined population, we draw a sample out of it, we analyze the sample, and we infer back to the population. So this loop is a concrete one. So rather than measuring every pregnant woman in New York, the researcher takes a 30% sample and measure weight gain within it and use that result to draw conclusions about the full population. So we have what is called sample size. How do we determine sample size? There are two categories. So I'm going to just give us two. It falls into two categories. When the size is unknown, okay, and when the size is known. This is a very important section because many researchers, students, undergraduate students, they are finding this area difficult. They don't know which one to use, what to do when it comes to sample size determination. So they were looking for different kind of so can certainly know what are you dealing with. Do you know the sample size? If you know the sample size, you can use Yamin's formula. Yamin's formula is one of the best. So, but if you don't know the sample size, you can use a Cochrane formula. So this is how. So this uses a set score from your confidence level and assume variability and a margin of error. So when you use it when you don't know the total size of the group you are studying. Don't know, maybe all adult coffee drinkers. So there's no population at all, no size. All right. But when it comes to the other side, the Yamin's formula, this is for the known population size, the exact population size, and your margin error, nothing else. So when you want to use it, you know the total population, e.g., the 2,000 farmers enrolled in this program. So you already know the number of total farmers that you want to study. So that's one you can go straight to the formula. So the formula is very simple. So both formulas answer the same question actually, but how few people can get away with sampling for two different situations work sample next. So if you look at the formula here is the formula here, right, for when a population is unknown. So maybe you're surveying an unspecified group of adults, for example. Okay, this is okay example. So our confidence level is 95%, okay, which is our Z. Our Z will be 1.96 automatically. So variability is our maximum uncertainty, which is our safe default is 0.5 always, unless your research requires that you use different variability, maybe 0.4 or 0.6. That depends on what you are dealing with. So but our margin error is always 0.05. Okay, generally margin error is 0.05. So we can supply the formula here. Our number, our n is our sample population, our sample equal to z squared times p into 1 minus p over e squared. So this is our formula. So you just supply these values here, you get our result here, 385. Okay, respondent needed. So we need 385 people. Okay, so this can be rounded up to 400 to leave room for outliers and incomplete responses. Okay, so this is very simple. For a student who is doing research, you can certainly use this particular method to get your values immediately. Now, because you don't know the population, but you want to do a research in that area, so you know how many samples do you want, you really need rather. So it will help you to get that very fast. Okay, that is that for that. So let's move on. The second one, which is called non-population. Now you already know the population. Okay, you want to research on 2,000 farmers, for example. So what you just need is your margin error, which is the same 0.05. Okay, as our variability 0.05 here. So the formula is just n is applicable to n is the population now over 1 plus me times e to the power square. So this is what we have. Then if you supply that value here, you can get a result here, 333 farmer needed. So this one for a known population. So we are looking at population already known. So from there you can extract our sample size out of it, okay, based on our margin of error. So that is very simple and straightforward. So you can if you notice that knowing the exact population, let us survey fewer than 17% of it and still get a reliable estimate. So this is very straightforward for any student to use. So let's quick check against our data set. So we have a 320 clean data customer that we have done, and was that ever enough? Our customer base size isn't specified, so we don't know because we are not actually doing a proper research. So Cochrane's formula applies here actually. So at 95% confidence and our 5% margin error, the classic guideline called for 385 to 400. So it's about our classic guidelines. So but we are looking at we are having 320 now. Honestly speaking, our data set sits on a bit below the classic guidelines, which we need. So that is a deliberate trade-off, of course, for a course like this. So large enough to see real patterns we are looking for, and small enough to inspect by hand. In real research, this is exactly the kind of a gap that you need to address before trusting any result. Okay, all right. So now, when dealing with inferential statistics, now we are looking at a difference between both of them, inferential and descriptive. We have done that with mode 4 as a half part, which is a descriptive. So we are looking at the inferential at this point. So briefly, the descriptive summarizes facts about the data you have, while inferential draws conclusion about the population from the sample. At the school level, if descriptive doesn't generalize beyond the data sub-study, but inferential generalizes finding to the broader population. So method-wise, charts, histograms, center tendency, which we have studied in before, is applied for descriptive. But the inferential, we have hypothesis, we have tests, we have key values, predicting, modeling, and so on. So if you recall, the key descriptive metrics we had used before, center tendency, which are mean, mode, median, and also dispersion, which are range, variance, and STD, and IQR. So mode 6 and 7 are entirely about the inferential column. So moving from here, here's what we found. So 2, here is what we can conclude, that is inferential now. So we are going to be looking at that next in the implementation part. So now this module lives inside statistical modeling. So the branch module, first workflow diagram we pointed to before. So we study a sample to infer conclusion about a population. That is the entire goal of inference. So sample size isn't arbitrary. Cochrane's their main formula give a defensive minimum. So the statistics summarize, inferential statistics generalize. Simple. So we're going to look at that in our next implementation section. So thank you so much for listening. I will see you in the next class. Bye for now.